in this very interesting session on simplifying accreditation for management. Accreditation is a concept of self-regulation which focuses on self-study and evaluation and on the continuous improvement of education quality. It is both a process and a result. As a process, it is a form of peer review in which an association of schools and colleges establishes a set of criteria and procedures to encourage high maintenance of standards of education among its affiliate members. And as a result, it is a form of certification granted by a recognized and authorized accrediting agency to an educational program or to an educational institution for possessing certain standards of quality which are over and above those prescribed as minimum requirements for government recognition. Accreditation is based on an analysis of the merits of educational operations in the context of institution's philosophy and its objectives. So in this session, we have invited a distinguished expert to talk about simplifying accreditation in management. It is my pleasure and an honor to welcome and introduce Dr. Yoginder Singh Verma. He has been the Pro Vice Chancellor of Central University of Himachal Pradesh. He has also served as a Dean of School of Business and Management Studies. He headed the UGC Academic Staff College of Himachal Pradesh University as a director for about 20 years, and he is known to be an institution builder. He established the Institute of Integrated Himalayan Studies, the UGC Center of Excellence, in 2002. To top it all, he has also served as a Colombo Plan expert in Tribhuvan University, Nepal during 1983 to 1985. He is on the expert panel of National Commission on Academic Accreditation and Assessment in Saudi Arabia, National Assessment and Accreditation Council of Bangalore, and Quality Assurance and Accreditation Division, UGC Nepal. He's also a member of a number of national level committees constituted by UGC, AICTE, and NAC. He has been honored with prestigious awards like Management Excellence Award in 2010, Lifetime Award in 2011 by DAV institutions, Man of the Year Award in 2002, Ford Foundation Award in 1998. A very warm welcome to you, Yoginder sir. So we will start by asking you the basic question. Please help our viewers understand what accreditation is and why is it important for an organization to become accredited. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar to all the participants and the viewers. Mudita ji for such a lively introduction. Friends, India is huge, complex and heterogeneous. It is one of the largest higher education system in the world with about 1,000 universities, 52,000 colleges. Critical in accessibility, needs reforms in standards to achieve and maintain certain level of quality standards and benchmarks. National Council was established in 1994. Since hundreds of institutions have been assessed and accredited. Is voluntary but now UGC has made it mandatory for releasing grants, for providing of excellent for involving these institutions for various research and development. Many states have also made accreditation compulsory for grants as well as the fee structure. As far as accreditation is concerned, collegial concept, collegial process and peer assessment. But it is a certification. Quality is not a quantity. Definitely not. To be objective, to be transparent, we have to quantify the quality. So in attempt, but the essence of quality remains the value system. And here, values which govern the whole assessment process, accreditation process. First thing is whether education is able to, the institution is able to contribute to national, fostering global competencies among students, inculcating values, constitutional, human values, technology, and then the part, education institution, when it is accredited, it is beneficial in a number of ways. It comes to know its strengths, weaknesses, and challenges. Many times.
Yes, so that will actually answer the next question that we have in line, sir. What requirements an educational institution must demonstrate to be accredited by an authorizing accrediting agency? So yes, please throw some light on that, sir. Thank you.
Okay, fine. But here, the importance of accreditation is that institutions are able to know their strengths, opportunities, challenges, and not only now the regulatory agencies, they are satisfied with their working. Students for that institution which gives it a genuineness. So accreditation is very important. But institutions, as you ask this question, what is the minimum requirement? Which institution can go for accreditation or assessment? Now, in management particularly, there are stand-alone institutions like Institute of Management or Research, and number of these institutions are there. Management departments in the universities, and then institutions of national importance like IIM. So these institutions which are going for assessment and accreditation, what is required? I think it's a very valid institution go for accreditation. No, actually they have to fulfill certain minimum requirements. Is that they get registered in the e-portal. In the recent years, particularly after 2017, NAAC has come on more. So they are using. So when you go for there is one All India survey on higher education. So institution has to register. And there is a reference number. So institution fulfills that number. Well, it has this number in ISHE. Then another condition is exams which are offered by the educational institution must be recognized, formally approved by the concerned regulatory authority. For example, UGC, AICTE, or so higher education institution which has produced further of 6 years, whichever is earlier, are eligible for assessment and accreditation. Besides other conditions also, they must fulfill those conditions. Institutions, some universities have off campuses. Now, these office campuses are accredited or assessed if they are approved by the ministry, they are approved by the UGC. Off assessment is not allowed. Then another condition is the distance education is also not covered. These are the conditions about the institution desirous. Then no, in the second cycle or third cycle, these are the these are the minimum conditions.
Okay, so we
Yes.
at least now know that distance education institutes and offline education institutes are not covered under accreditation. So they do not need to apply as well. I mean, there's no point applying. So thank you for that information, sir. Now, help us understand the major steps involved in the accreditation process. You spoke about a couple of them, but let's talk about it in detail.
Actually, the whole process of quality assurance and accreditation is similar. Is similar to those that are followed by other quality assurance agencies worldwide. No difference. Like in India, we have two agencies: Board of Accreditation and National Assessment Accreditation Council. As far as NAC is concerned, it has a very robust time-based step IST-enabled assessment and accreditation system. Facets, you can say. One is off-site and other is online. As far as off-site is concerned, it starts of institutional information. It is known as IIQA, that is Institutional Information for Quality Assessment. So the first step is HEI gets registered on NAC website, and if it, as I told you about the conditions, then it submits IIQA. That is the basic information which is submitted. And after the acceptance of IIQA, will be asked to fill up self-study report with the required documents to be uploaded on the NAC website within 30 days. So everything, earlier there was a time, maybe 8-10 years back, when the report has been submitted and then the team visit takes place maybe after 1 year or 1.5 years. But now it has been, you can say, text. So there is a deadline for everything, IIQA, SSR. Within 30 days, you have to fill up the SSR. And then, interestingly, earlier, of course, the parameters, the various aspects, I will not go into details those, but with criteria, various key indicators, parameters, they have been identified and they have been validated by a number of processes. As I told you, that NAC has been doing it time and again based on the feedback, based on the difficulties. Like you see, the same key indicators cannot be applied to a affiliated college and to a central university. So they have made certain refinements in the whole process. So now this SSR contains a format. There are two types of indicators. One is quantitative metrics and other is qualitative metrics. So now these quantitative metrics, they are about 2/3 number, and qualitative about 1/3. So this is offline. And here, interestingly, NAC has provided liberty or freedom. Educational institutions, they have provided certain autonomy. They can also opt out certain metrics, which are drawn. Like, you can't withdraw a number of teachers and their qualifications. So that is essential. And after, simultaneously what is happening, NAAC has designed a system which is very objective. It is totally based on software. So now the process starts. So DVV, that is data verification and validation. So this validation is done by third party. Like, institution give a fake data or manipulated data. We have these books published, this number of papers published, this number of conferences attended, like that. All of the teachers, that this is the number of teachers, actually they may not be existing. So this data is validated and verified through AISHE, Influence, or various other modes. Of course, even NAAC, this is being done with that objectivity. So once DVV is done, and there also you find DVV says that the data is wrong or the facts are not proper, then NAAC comes back, asks the institution to clarify. And if it is found that no, they have manipulated the data so much, then even the action is taken, that institution is blacklisted and the regulatory agency is told about that. As far as qualitative metrics are concerned, that will be reviewed by peer team, which will visit the campus. But when DVV is being done, another thing which has been introduced in 2017, that is student survey satisfaction survey. And satisfaction survey. So the students are the major stakeholder. So are they satisfied with the facility, with the teaching, with the learning, with the research, with the governance, and with the learning resources, etc., etc. So about 30 questions are sent to them. So when SSR is filed by the institution, simultaneously they have to send email, mobile of the students. Our whole database is sent to NAAC. Then NAAC writes to the students through email portal, and after, when about 10% response has come, then the peer team visit is planned. Another thing is, if the score based on this quantitative metric is less than 30%, then that is rejected at this level. So team will visit. Team visit only if 30% has been achieved and 10% given their satisfaction, this survey score. So this is how, when the team goes to the campus, they are expected only the qualitative metrics. For example, in case of university, there are 36 metrics. In case of a college, it is about 33. So now these metrics, that is based on their judgment, that is based on the discussion, that is based on the documents, that is based on the even the student satisfaction survey. That material is also provided to the team. After the team this, then they calculate the score criteria wise, and then they send to the NAAC. So again, everything has been done. Quantitative aspect has been done. So if the graphical presentation has been prepared. So that means this quantitative score, student satisfaction survey score, and then the peer team score. It is added, and then there comes out to be CGPA. So even the peer team members don't know what score they have given. They are tending to say 1/3 of the or 30% of the score. So it is really objective and transparent. Earlier, even the peer team member, they were received by the by the institution, and many times there used to be criticism that there is a favoritism, there are costly gifts, etc. Now that's not there. So they are not told who are the members. Earlier they used to take a consent from the educational institution that we don't have a conflict interest of conflict of interest with a particular member. But now it's not like it's not there. So they are told the team is coming on this is the day. Every arrangement is made by NAC. They're traveling, their stay, etc., etc. So lot of objectivity is maintained. So this way, now the grade is given to the institution. CGPA is given. If the institution is not satisfied, then so they scope for appeal. So within 30 days they can appeal. So this appeal can be related to quantitative data. It can be related to the qualitative data. If the institution thinks that even their grievance has not been attended, they have again freedom after 1 year. They can go for reassessment. So a lot of things have been done. You can say the simplification, objectivity, transparency, and the things have become more software driven or ICT driven, then objectivity, confidence in the institutions that's also increasing. So that is how this process, and in NBA also almost similar process. The difference is that in NBA there is no difference like quantitative and qualitative metrics, but there is a team which goes, and particularly the focus is on program objectives, program outcomes, as well as course outcomes.
So good to know that it's such an amalgamation of the corporate culture, of the education processes that have to be taken care of. Everything is amalgamated into this new, into this complete accreditation process that you're talking about. One small question I have here: are the income tax and such financials also a part of the checklist in the quantitative metrics that you said?
Yeah, definitely. So everything, whether it is a budget or it is a resources, it is a technology, is teaching, learning, papers, research, extension, innovation, governance, leadership, management, all strategic planning, implementation strategies. So these are all aspects. And then similarly, what are the best practices of the institution? So more than 50 indicators, they have been now standardized.
So it's really nice to hear all this, that we are going to have even a better quality and standard of education in our country, and we are on the path of improvement in every aspect. Thank you so much for sharing all this, sir. We'll move to the next question, which with which we want to understand how does the accreditation management system simplify the assessment of the management programs?
You see, as I mentioned earlier also, there are two bodies. One is National Board of Accreditation. This National Board of Accreditation is an autonomous body like NAC. Earlier, it was autonomous body of AICTE, All India Council of Technical Education. But now it is autonomous body. So this institution accredits technical programs. The difference between NAC and NBA is accrediting only the program. For example, MBA program, in case of management we are talking about. So it is only MBA, not UG program like BBA or BBM or certificate courses or diploma courses in different fields of management. So it is accrediting only the management program. So of course, because under AICTE, management is one of the professional or technical program. NBA is a member of Washington Accord. So this body is also accredited. when I was looking into the figure, then NBA has accredited 400 institutes offering PG programs. So if institution is offering PG program as well as UG program or PhD program, then only PG program, the team PG program. So it is limited. You see in India, no, actually when I say 400, it doesn't mean that 400 institutions. What happens in many institutions like, I may talk about say MIT or many other such institutions which are offering PG program, MBA marketing, MBA finance, MBA international business, MBA like that. Maybe 10 programs, MBA programs. So these 10 programs are accredited separately. Separately. So even one institution, but 10 programs, so 10 accreditation. So that way, only 400 up till now, 400 programs have been accredited, and most of these institutions are those which are private or which are approved by the AICTE. So the institutions which are offering multiple programs in different subjects or leading to the degree of PG, UG, PhD, etc. in management, they go for the NAAC. And we see that mostly colleges, they are multidisciplinary. Even the private colleges, they are becoming multidisciplinary, like engineering college offering management program, and also in the social sciences, humanities, etc. So therefore, many institutions, they are going for NAAC accreditation. But as I told you that as far as the NAAC is concerned, it has a very stupendous task, very difficult task of accrediting. Because 50,000 colleges, 10,000 universities, and then there are standalone institutes, 10,000 more, like B.Ed colleges or management colleges, engineering colleges. At present, if you look into the NAAC website, I found 318 universities, they have valid accreditation. Many more have been accredited, but the validation is for 5 years. So only 380, and 5,387 colleges have been accredited. So NAAC has to go a long way, and NBA has to go a long way in assessment and accreditation. And as your major concern in this discussion and the sense is that how to simplify, how to make it more professional. So I think technology has played a very important role in simplification process. Feedback, a very important is feedback coming from the industry, feedback coming from the academicians, feedback coming from the students, alumni, community engagement has another important aspect.
Thank you, sir. I think there is still one question that may have cropped up in people's minds here viewing this webinar. So one program which is approved for an institute, maybe for a certain location, if that institute is running the same program in another location also, separate accreditation will be needed for that program, or the same accreditation will be valid for both the locations?
No, separate. Now, if it is off campus, then it will have a totally separate accreditation. It is approved by the government. Certain institutions, they have approved off campuses. Approved. So if they are approved, then that is included. So, but the team will visit. Of course, their data will be considered.
Okay. So, with the NEP's advent, the NEP which was announced in 2020, May, June time. So these being the new policies being implemented, what are the key changes that you want to highlight, and what we can expect in these in the new policy with respect to the whole accreditation process?
Well, this is a very interesting question, and I think very valid question because whatever efforts are being done by NBA as well as because The NAC has come out with certain more refinements, more simplifications. NBA is also doing like that. So more emphasis on outcome based assessment and accreditation. Well, in coming years, as this new education policy, as we are aware, it has set a wide range of, you can say, the or what we are going to see is overhaul of the system, not only on higher education but whole education. But our focus is on higher education. Higher education system will face the challenge of access, because we want that by 2035, we get a 50% EE ratio, so we can compete with the developed countries. And then quality is another concern. Equity, accountability, engagement. So lifelong learning. So now challenges which are emerging. One major challenge which this NEP says, that is imparting higher education which is holistic and multidisciplinary with multiple. It's very interesting. So again, educational governance, this is a challenge. That earlier, for example, when a student is doing graduation, after first year, so then he doesn't get any degree. What will happen? After 1 year, okay, you have completed the first year, you will get a certificate course. If you do the second year, you get a diploma course. Well, 3 years normally. If you want to do for 4 years, then there is a graduation with research. So that means is of 3 years as well as of 4 years. Similarly, MA or master degree is also for 1 year as well as 2 years. The integrated than 5-year bachelor and master's degree program. A lot of changes which we are visualizing. Language is going to play a very important part. Degree has been discontinued. Interesting thing is that for accreditation, accreditation is so important because now I have some credits doing a graduation course in University A. Now credit will be academic bank of credits. So there will be academic bank of credits. So those credits, if you go to from Shimla, I go to Mumbai, there I get opportunity to do certain more credits. Those credits will be cumulative. So I look at my bank credit. So that way, now these all things will be there. Then today we have multiplicity of educational institutions. So many institutions deemed to be universities, central universities, institutions of excellence. Then you have private universities, you have state universities, affiliated colleges, you have constituent colleges, you have cluster universities. Whatever is there in the world, we have in India. So this policy says that now everything has to be rationalized. There will be broadly 3: research-intensive universities, teaching-intensive universities, autonomous degree granting colleges. So these affiliated colleges, by and by, they become autonomous degree grading colleges. And the universities, how we are visualizing, like the tradition of Nalanda and Takshashila, these universities were having a huge campus. 20,000, 50,000 students in the campus, resident and providing education. So this, even the institutions like management or information technology or engineering, they have to become multidisciplinary. So imparting MA in history or art and all that. So will come in. Then there will be certain model multidisciplinary education and research universities, what is visualized as Meru. There will be a model in Nalanda or Takshashila. Higher education autonomy, academic, administrative and financial autonomy. In the coming 15 years, I think this policy is very enthusiastic and very optimistic. They will go. No affiliating university. So, well, in that case, now imagine will be the scenario of population. How to diverse, multiple system. For that purpose, now the policy says that it will have going to happen, because today you have councils. You must have heard University Grants Commission, AICTE, the Inter Council of India, Council of India, Pharmaceutical Council of India. So many councils, about 16 councils are there. So every council has are doing multiple functions: monitoring, granting, project research. So all type of functions are being done by every council, and that way there is a lot of diversity. I suppose grant for my project in UGC, I will go to AICTE or ICSSR, maybe in some councils, or ICAR, where they are more liberal or they are having more funding. So there is no rationalization. So now, one umbrella institution, that will be Higher Education Commission of India. Education Commission of India, which will have 4 verticals. 4 institutions will be working not under it, but along with it. So all these 4 will be the part of Higher Education Commission. First authority agency will be National Higher Education Regulatory Council, or like you see ICTE or UGC or NCT, National Council of Teacher Education. Then the second will be Higher Education Grants Council, so which will be giving grants, whether it is engineering, technology, management, arts, humanities, except legal and medical. So those left out in NEP 2020. And the third is General Education Council. What will be the standards of learning, outcome, program outcome, course outcome? Who will set the standards? So now there will be General Education Council, and these all councils, existing councils, will be of this council. For example, for engineering education, AICTE will be setting the standards with the approval of General Education Council. Similarly, UGC will have a different, maybe it will be merged with the Higher Education Grants Council. So its job will be basically granting. And the fourth, why I gave this background, so that it's clear in the mind that we have 4 verticals and there is one umbrella. So whole system is light and tight. This is what mentioned in NEP. Light and tight. Autonomy. Every council, every authority has autonomy, freedom, but at the same time, their agent methods, transparent, objective. So this that you want recognition for your courses online. It will be online. No inspection or license Raj in the higher education. So now the fourth will be National Accreditation Council, NAC. So NAAC will be there, NBA will not be there. There will be National Accreditation Council. It is interesting to understand it. This will be a, you can say, the meta accrediting. This will be the mother accrediting body, and it will develop certain norms or certain to identify or develop certain agencies or approve these agencies as further accrediting agencies. So that means the job of this NAC will be taken over by the NAC, NAC, whatever you say. So 1A will go. And under NAC, maybe it will be under NAC and some other agencies, even some other agencies, some universities, some private, even private. Interesting part in NAP 2020 is that public or private differences have been discussed. Main focus is on the outcome. Rather, it has been mentioned institutions, particularly the private, should not be for earning purpose. They should be philanthropic. Instead of public-private partnership that we talk in industry, now I have talked about public philanthropic partnership. So, well, now that means when you have a number of agencies, accrediting agencies, all accrediting agencies will not be of the same standard. Some accrediting agency maybe with the A grade, other maybe with the B++ grade. They will also be accredited by the NAC. No matter which accrediting agency has accredited or assessed your institution. I think
there is a question that has come up. Someone wants to ask if the previous accreditations will be continued or reassessment will be done for any accreditations.
I think that will continue. That will continue because some institution has been given 5 years, it has completed 4 years, so it will get 1 more year. Or in case of NPA, suppose it is 3 years. Then if it has not completed 3 years, it will continue. That will continue because it's not totally there is a radical change, but doesn't mean that you will uproot the institutions because in the whole spectrum, what we see is that existing institutions, there will be rationalization. The nature of job will be different. Maybe the whole concept of NAC will maybe. So, well, that will be valid. That will be valid.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful discussion on the NEP part. I think everybody really wanted to know so much about it, and I'm sure they have gathered a lot of knowledge here. So, participants, my last call to you to please send any further questions if you have. And meanwhile, we can have closing remarks from you, sir, if anything that you want to mention on the key takeaways that we have from this session. We can take that while we have any further questions. I don't see any new questions coming up so far.
Okay.
And I think that is because you've explained all of it so well, point by point, that I mean, people who were even writing certain questions, they have stopped writing probably because they already got the answers. So kudos to how you've given us all this information.
If India is to become economic superpower and Jagat Guru, as we say that our education system was the best, and there used to be students coming from various countries, various continents, and get education here. In one campus, there used to be 64 types education, or you can say the faculties. So people had the choice for the type of education. And I think if that is revived, then you see the real potential of the person will be fully utilized. It will be fully utilized. Like for example, we see that in the ancient system, like when we talk about Mahabharata, then Bhima was also, he was of course Mali Yuddha or Gada Yuddha, but at the same time, he was a very good cook. He learned that. Arjuna was a very good dancer, and he taught of Viratnagar dancing during that Agyatbas. So here is that is not only that you get stream, but in multiple streams of your choice, of your you can say interest. So in that case, our education system, the quality in education system can be assured by a judicious blend of modern technology and the traditional wisdom. And that is the greatest challenge. So even in this document, or otherwise also, the future of India lies in it. Otherwise, there is no difference between any developed countries. What I have seen when assessing or accrediting certain institutions in Saudi Arabia, I found that system is like a wood, like iron. But in our system, there is a liveliness. It is because of our art, our culture, our tradition. That's very strong. Okay. Judicious to bring in, and then actually educational institutions to become hub of scholarship, hub of creativity, humanity, entrepreneurship, and above all, engagement. That people, types of all shades of people, all types of stakeholders, they have interest in the institution and they are fully engaged. And we are concerned about that. So as a teacher, I'm not only concerned about my students sitting in the classroom, but also people in society. How this research can contribute. So I think these things are going to take a prominent place. Of course, the condition is if the education policy is implemented with the intention with which it has been prepared. Otherwise, also, our future lies in this. So assessment and accreditation will play a crucial role creating quality institutions. When I say quality institutions, I would like to more emphasize on creating a quality culture where there is a life, there is a humanity, there is a creativity, there is a work culture. So higher education institutions have to continuously adhere to quality benchmarks and follow best practice. Let's remember.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
last sentence.
I'm sorry.
Last sentence that I said that let us remember that quality is a journey, not a destination. So this simplification will go on. Quality, not chance, not an accident. And last, it is a culture, not a rule. Culture, not a rule. Thank you.
Thank you for so beautifully concluding this session, sir. Much appreciated. And over to the participants. So you will see a survey link of the channel at the end of this event. Please do fill in the comments and feedback. It is very important for us to know where we can improve and how. And also register yourself on the channel link that you will see at the end of the session. You will have much more exciting videos waiting for you there. Please do visit the channel. Thank you so much, all the audience, for being here today with us. And thank you so much, Dr. Verma, for giving us all this knowledge that you have. in you. Thank you. Thank you for this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Thank you.